You have been building something, not loudly, not in the specific, visible, everyone can see the progress quality of building that announces itself at each stage, in the quiet, consistent, this is what I do regardless of whether anyone notices quality of someone who shows up for their own life with a seriousness that does not require external validation to sustain itself. Day after day, in the unremarkable, unglamorous, nobody is applauding quality of continued effort. And something is accumulating, not in a way that has been fully visible to you, not in the specific, trackable, I can point to the progress quality of something whose development has been producing clear, measurable evidence of itself along the way. In the quieter, harder to track quality of something that develops below the surface of the visible. That is real and is growing, but that has not yet produced the specific, external, unmistakable form that would allow you to say clearly, this is what I have been building toward. That form is approaching. I want to begin with what abundant actually means, because abundant is a word that tends to get reduced to its material dimension, and the reduction misses most of what it actually is. Abundant is not simply having more. Having more is a quantity. Abundant is a quality. The specific, particular quality of a life in which what is present corresponds to what you are, in which the external circumstances of your existence have come into alignment with the internal reality of what you bring and what you are worth and what you are capable of. That alignment is what abundance actually is, not a number, a correspondence. And the correspondence is not something that arrives through luck or through a single fortunate event or through any of the dramatic, visible mechanisms that tend to be associated with the word abundance. It arrives through the accumulation of consistent, internal, quality driven effort finally reaching the surface, through the thing you have been building finally being visible. Let me describe what has been building, not in terms of specific predictions, in terms of what I observe in the energy of someone who is in the position you are in. You have been developing something internally that precedes the external expression of it. This is the specific, often underappreciated quality of how genuine abundance tends to arrive. The internal development comes first. The clarity about what you want and what you are worth and what you will and will not accept, the specific, accumulated, built from experience quality of self knowledge that allows you to recognize what is aligned for you and what is not. The settled quality of someone who has done enough interior work to have a reliable sense of their own center. That development is not visible from the outside. It does not produce immediate, measurable results, but it is the foundation. And foundations, when they are solid enough, eventually support what they were always going to support. I want to speak to why you do not know it yet, because the title names this, and the not knowing deserves its honest examination. You are too close to the building to see what it has produced. This is the specific, common quality of someone who has been deeply inside a process of development, who has been in the day to day ground level quality of the work. and who has not had sufficient distance from it to see what the accumulated work has actually produced. You see the effort. You know what it has cost. You know the specific, unglamorous quality of what each day of continued building has required of you. What you cannot as easily see from inside the building is what the building has become. That perspective requires distance, requires stepping back far enough that what you have produced is visible as a whole rather than only as the sum of the daily increments that produced it. Others who are not inside the building can sometimes see it more clearly than you can, not because they know more, because they have the distance that you from inside do not have. I want to speak to something about your relationship with abundance that may be worth examining. You may have a complicated relationship with receiving it, not with wanting it, with receiving it. The specific particular quality of someone who has been in a position of building and working and sustaining themselves through the quality of their own effort for long enough that the posture of the builder has become the default. The specific, ongoing, I am in the working quality of someone who is so accustomed to the effort that the arrival of the result produces a slightly unfamiliar experience. The posture of receiving is different from the posture of building. Building is active, forward leaning, continuously generating. Receiving is something else. It requires a specific quality of openness, of allowing what has been generated to arrive and to be recognized and to be taken in rather than immediately converted into the next stage of the building. If receiving is unfamiliar to you, if the arrival of good things tends to produce in you more of the anxious quality of what comes next rather than the settling quality of this is here that is worth noticing, because the era that is approaching will require you to receive. And receiving well is its own specific skill. Tell me in the comments if this resonates, whether the relationship with abundance I am describing with building more easily than receiving, with the externalization of effort more than the internalization of result matches something you recognize in yourself. Whether this reading is finding the right territory, I want to speak to what the most abundant era actually looks like for someone like you, because abundant for a Virgo does not look like abundant for everyone. It does not look like excess. Virgo abundance has a specific quality of sufficiency, of having exactly what is needed with nothing wasted, of resources, material, relational, creative, temporal being present in the proportion that allows the things that matter to be done well, that allows the work to be what it is capable of being. That removes the specific grinding friction of insufficient resource from the equation and allows what remains, which is simply you, doing what you do to produce its natural results unimpeded. That is a specific, particular quality of abundance, less about overflow and more about alignment, less about having everything and more about having what is genuinely needed to do what you are genuinely here to do. That alignment, when it arrives, has a quality of ease that the prior period of friction did not have. Not the ease of having nothing to do, the ease of doing what you do without the specific additional burden of doing it against resistance. Let me describe what the shift into this feels like when it begins. Small things become easier, not the dramatic things. The small, daily, this is what my life requires things. The specific quality of the ordinary friction that has been present in your daily navigation of things, the friction of insufficient resource, of timing not quite right, of effort required that exceeds what the situation should require, begins to reduce, not all at once. In the gradual, barely perceptible, one ordinary day, slightly better than the last quality of something that is shifting, where you notice in retrospect rather than in the moment that certain things have become less effortful than they used to be, that certain doors that were previously requiring significant pushing are moving more readily, that certain things that used to take significant energy are consuming less. That is the beginning of the shift, not a single dramatic announcement. The specific accumulating quality of less friction in the everyday. I want to say something about what you bring to this era that no circumstance produced for you, the capacity to use it. This is the piece that tends to be underemphasized in conversations about abundance, not the arriving of it, what you do with it when it arrives. Someone who has done the internal work, who has the clarity about what matters and the self knowledge to recognize what is aligned and the discipline to direct resource toward what it is genuinely for, uses abundance differently from someone who has not done that work. They do not waste it. Not in the dramatic sense of making obviously poor choices, in the subtler, more common sense of allowing abundance to expand into the available space without direction, of having more without a clear understanding of what the more is for, of the resource arriving and dispersing into whatever the path of least resistance is, rather than being directed by genuine intention. You have the intention, you have been developing it throughout the building period. The clarity about what matters, the specific sense of what you are building toward and why, the understanding of what is aligned for you and what is not, the willingness to direct what arrives toward what it is actually for rather than toward what is simply easiest. That is not a small thing to bring to an abundant era. It is the thing that determines what the era actually produces. As we close, I want to give you one image. The moment when the building becomes visible, not the moment when you finish building of the kind you do does not finish. It simply moves into the next stage. The specific moment when what has been accumulating below the surface of the visible finally produces enough above the surface to be clearly seen. Not by others first, by you. The specific, slightly startling quality of stepping back from what you have been inside and seeing, perhaps for the first time, with full clarity, what the sustained, consistent, unremarkable daily effort has actually produced, what it has become, what you have built. That moment is closer than it feels from inside the building. And when it arrives, when the perspective that was not available from inside finally becomes available, what you will see will be more than you allowed yourself to fully claim while you were in the work of producing it. It always is. The builder is always the last to see the building clearly. You are close to seeing it. And when you do, something will settle in you that has been in a state of uncertainty for longer than you may have realized. The specific quality of someone who has been working without being entirely certain the work was producing what work is supposed to produce, finally encountering the evidence that it was, all of it, the unglamorous days, the choices that nobody noticed or applauded, the specific, private, entirely internal quality of continuing when continuing was not immediately rewarding. All of it was producing something. The building was real, and what was built is yours, fully, in every dimension, without qualification. That is what your most abundant era begins with, not an external event, a recognition of what you have already made,